For 3 centuries, Prince Therineal of the Silver Court lived by sacred codes, honor, heritage, and the belief that elven bones were to be mourned, never touched. But everything changes when he discovers a human camp scavenging elven remains to forge armor that glows with the sacred light of marrowlight, the magical essence of elven marrow. At first, it is a blasphemy. Then, it is a necessity. This is a story of broken beliefs and reluctant alliances. Of an ancient prince forced to choose between the honor of the dead and the survival of the living. As human rebels face off against horrors once thought destroyed, creatures born of war and twisted magic, Therineal must face the hardest truth of all: sometimes, what saves the world is not tradition, but change. Prince Therineal stood at the edge of the ruined battlefield, cold wind brushing his silver hair back from his face. The Silverwood Passage, once a sacred border where elven warriors had held the line for centuries, now reeked of smoke and death. Trees that had sung with life were now charred stumps. The ground was stained red and black, soaked in blood and other, darker fluids. His breath caught when he saw what lay ahead. It wasn't a graveyard. It was a workshop. Where elven soldiers had fallen, humans now moved like ants over carrion. Tents had been set up between broken towers. Forgeries hissed and hammered, spitting smoke into the poisoned sky. In place of funeral rites, there were carts filled with bones. His hand went to his sword, a motion more of instinct than thought. He whispered a curse under his breath in the old tongue. Sweet singing stars, they were harvesting them. They were harvesting his people. He stepped into the camp, fury rising in his chest like a storm tide. The first human he saw was a girl. Barely 16 summers, perhaps younger. Her cheeks were smudged with soot. She looked up from a workbench where she was grinding something glowing into powder. The armor she wore shimmered white, laced with copper wire that pulsed with an eerie light. Therineal's heart stuttered. Marrowlight. The glow of sacred bone. She noticed him. Her eyes widened, not in fear, but interest. "We've got a live one," she called. Before he could strike, she moved, fast, impossibly fast. Not with natural skill, but with something guided. The armor responded to her intent, plates shifting like fluid metal. She pulled a hammer from her back, one far too heavy for her frame. And yet she held it as if it weighed nothing. Therineal drew his sword, the blade ringing with the righteous fury of generations. "Defilers," he said, voice low and tight. "You dare wear the dead?" The girl stepped forward, twirling her hammer. "Name's Kit," she said. "And technically, we're recyclists. Not grave robbers." He struck first. He had trained for centuries, studied under masters whose lineages stretched to the first tree. His blade danced. He was perfection. But she was faster. Her hammer met his sword with a shattering impact, and the force sent him staggering through the mud. She didn't press the attack. Just adjusted her grip, relaxed. "I get it," Kit said. "You're angry. You think we're monsters. But we're just trying not to die. You wear my great-uncle's rib cage," he spat. "Then he's still protecting people," she said simply. They clashed again. Steel met bone. He moved like water over stone, every movement controlled, precise. Kit fought like a wildfire, unpredictable, unrefined, but devastating. And the armor, gods, the armor, made her nearly untouchable. Every strike she blocked sent a wave of energy pulsing through the copper lines, dispersing force. Every swing she took landed like thunder. "This is an abomination," Therineal panted. "This," Kit growled, catching his blade between her gauntlets, "is survival." She twisted. His sword snapped. The next thing he knew, he was face down in the mud. Kit's boot pressed against his back, just firm enough to keep him down. "Right then," she said, cheerful again. "Let's get you sorted. Jasper. We need the fancy restraints." They didn't kill him. Instead, they locked him in a cage welded from salvaged elven spears. He sat, silent, burning with shame. The insult was complete. The camp bustled around him, and what he saw began to challenge the fire of his hatred. Children ran between tents, laughing. Healers moved from bed to bed, tending to the sick with powders and pastes, many mixed with marylite. One child screamed as a burn was treated. The healer whispered something, applied the bone salve, and the screaming stopped. Her mother wept in relief. Near the forge, a gaunt man stirred a vat of thick grey liquid. "I almost got it," he muttered. "Just need the lattice to hold. Can't rely on dead battlefields forever." The leader of the camp, a scarred woman with a bone prosthetic, approached the cage. Her leg, he noticed, was made from an elven femur. The marrow still glowed faintly. "I'm Hollis," she said. "And if you're wondering, yes. That's from the Silverwood. And no, I don't care if that offends you." The Renial kept his silence. "We lost 27 people in the last Titan attack," Hollis continued. "Would have been more if Kit hadn't worn that armor. Saved everyone on the bridge." He finally spoke. "You speak of Titans as if they still walk." "They do," Hollis said. Then she pulled out a journal, flipped to a sketch. "And they're not just walking. They're evolving." The drawing showed a horror, a fusion of stone and flesh, arms like tree limbs, multiple faces screaming silently. The Renial's blood turned cold. "That's not possible," he whispered. "The flesh forges were destroyed." "Were they?" A shout interrupted them. "Titan," someone screamed. "Western Ridge." Kit was already sprinting toward the front, hammer in hand. Her armor shifted with her movements, plates rearranging into battle form. The Renial gripped the cage bars, heart pounding. Then he saw it. Lumbering over the hill, a creature too terrible to describe. A thing that had once been elven. The remnants of a uniform were visible in the shifting, cancerous flesh. Faces, 3 of them, watched in all directions. The earth trembled with each step. The Bone Riders, that's what Hollis called them, scrambled to defensive positions. Children were ushered into bunkers. Fighters in bone armor lined up, their weapons gleaming with marylite. Kit stood at the center, hammer raised. The Renial's throat was dry. "Let me out," he said. Hollis didn't move. "Going to run?" she asked. "No," he said. "I'm going to fight." She studied him, nodded. "Jasper. Get the prints fitted." The Renial stood rigid as Kit and a lanky engineer named Jasper fastened the last plates onto his limbs. It felt wrong. The white bone shimmered faintly under the stormy sky, marylite veins pulsing like blood. He couldn't help but think of the man who once wore it. Matthias, Kit had said. A good fighter. Died yesterday. Matthias would have liked this, Kit said, tightening a copper strap over the Renial's shoulder. He had a sharp sense of irony. The Renial said nothing. He couldn't. The armor didn't feel like the ceremonial plate he had worn at court. This was lighter, more flexible. It moved when he breathed. It pulsed when he thought. Every part was fused together through delicate copper channels, all connected to glowing marrow nodes. "This is, not elven design," he muttered, flexing his fingers. "Nope," Kit replied. "We had to reverse engineer everything. Improvised a lot. Trial and error. A lot of dead before we figured it out." He looked down at the gleaming gauntlets. "And now you wear our dead." Kit paused, then met his eyes. "No. We carry them." A shout tore across the camp. Titan breaching the line. The ground shook again, 3 booming steps, closer each time. Kit grabbed her warhammer, the head nearly as big as her torso. She spun it once and grinned. "Welcome to the Bone Rights," she said. "Try not to die." They ran together. Thereniel followed her through the smoke, the shouts, the chaos. His boots sank into the blood-soaked mud. Ahead, the Titan was a moving mountain of corruption. Flesh melted into armor. Blades jutted from every limb. Its 3 heads turned constantly, searching, scanning. The front line was barely holding. Bone-wearing fighters struck in coordinated bursts, glowing weapons biting deep into the creature's hide. But each wound sealed slowly, the Titan regenerating like a nightmare reborn. "On me!" Kit shouted. She leapt onto a shattered wagon, using it to spring toward the creature's knee. Thereniel moved with her, surprised at how quickly the armor responded. It didn't resist, it anticipated. His body felt lighter, faster, like gravity had loosened its grip. He slid under the Titan's lashing tail and drove his blade upward. The bone edge cut deep into a tendon-like strand of muscle. Black ichor spilled across his chest. Above him, Kit's hammer connected with the joint behind the knee. The impact cracked bone and made the Titan stumble. Roaring, it reached for them, a fist the size of a small cart crashing down. Thereniel raised his arms too late. But the armor absorbed it. The blow sent him skidding 20 feet back, but the plates glowed red instead of breaking. Copper lines flared and dispersed the force. He coughed mud from his mouth and stood. Alive. Still whole. Kit landed beside him. "Matthias likes you," she grinned. The Titan roared again. Its central face split open, revealing a glowing cavity filled with writhing marrow tubes and embedded elven insignias. House Silver Peak, he recognized. His cousin's house. A sick twist of betrayal and reanimation. "Keep it distracted," someone yelled. "We've got charges planted." The Bone Riders fell into formation. Fighters with spears and war axes darted in and out, each strike glowing with stored power. Thereniel moved like he was born in the armor. His ancient forms, perfected across centuries, blended with the new enhancements. The blade danced. At last, Kit gave the signal. "Clear. Everyone dove." A thunderclap followed, 5 explosions detonating beneath the Titan's ribcage. The impact lifted the creature off the ground. When it fell, it screamed, not in pain, but confusion, as if it no longer remembered what pain was supposed to feel like. Then it stilled. Steam rose from the corpse. The marrowlight glow in its chest flickered and died. For a long moment, no one moved. Then came the cheers. Tired. Wild. Real. Kit leaned on her hammer, breathing hard. "That," she said, "is why we do what we do." Thereniel removed his helmet slowly. His silver hair stuck to his sweat-drenched brow. Around him, the battlefield settled into something like calm. He looked at the armor he wore. At the bones of Matthias. At the marrowlight that pulsed faintly with every heartbeat. "It doesn't feel like a corpse," he said quietly. Kit nodded. "It feels like someone reaching forward." Later, in Hollis's tent, the leaders met over maps burned at the corners. The Titan was a scout, Hollis said, one eye on the valley below. "They always send one first. To measure resistance. That means more are coming." "How many?" Thereniel asked. "No one knows. The Senate claims the Titan War ended 500 years ago. But we've seen 23 in the last decade." "The Senate lied," he said bitterly. "We know," Kit replied. "We've seen the seals." She reached into her satchel and tossed something onto the table. An elven insignia, half melted, but still recognizable. "House Silver Peak." "My cousin's house," Thereniel muttered. "They're fueling these things." "They kept the forges running," Hollis said. "Called it experimental research. The corruption spreading. Not just the Titans anymore." She handed him a drawing. It showed something wrong. A winged beast made of bone and copper, part machine, part dragon, with too many limbs and hollow eyes. "What is this?" he whispered. "The next generation," Hollis said. "Built in the pale furnace. A hidden lab beneath Moonwell Valley. That's where they're making the real weapons. And you want to stop them?" "No," Kit said. "We have to stop them. Or there won't be a world left for your court to mourn." Therineal stood in silence. He looked down at the armor again. At the man named Matthias. At the girl who'd beaten him. At the camp where children lived among the dead and still laughed. "Then I will help you," he said. "Whatever it takes." Hollis raised an eyebrow. "Even if it means more of your people's bones in human hands." He didn't look away. "If it protects the living, yes." A small force, just 5 in total, moved through the broken lands toward the edge of the thornwood. Therineal led the way, Kit close behind, her hammer across her back. 2 bone riders followed, armored but silent. And Jasper, carrying spare copper lines and a pack full of notes from Felix, muttered calculations to himself with every step. Their mission was clear: gather allies. Rebels, witches, outcasts, anyone who still drew breath and hated what the furnace had become. But Therineal's first stop wasn't human. It was the daughters of Root and Remedy. The thornwood grew wild and deep, ancient beyond memory. Trees whispered to each other in winds no one else could feel. Light filtered through the canopy in dappled gold. Kit kept her helmet on, uneasy. "These people turned an army into trees," she whispered. "Trees with screaming faces." "Stay respectful," Therineal warned. "They don't forgive easily." A clearing opened ahead. A woman stepped from the shadows like she'd always been there. Her skin was bark. Her eyes were green as spring. "Prince Therineal," she said, voice like rustling leaves. "Wearing the bones of the dead. How curious." "I came seeking aid, eldest Morwen," he said, bowing low. "The pale furnace, we know," she said. "The roots whisper of poison in the moonwell." Kit stepped forward. "It's not just poison. It's making monsters. Things that bend reality. We can't stop them alone." Morwen tilted her head. "And you think we will join your bone wearers?" "We don't ask you to wear bones," Therineal said. "Only to fight with us. Contain the corruption. Stop what's being made before it wakes." There was silence. Then Morwen nodded. "We will not wear your armor. But we will stand. If you tell us the whole truth." "What truth?" Kit asked. "What the furnace is making," Morwen said. "No more secrets. No more noble lies. Speak the truth, or we stay in the forest." Therineal hesitated. Then he spoke. "They are making dragons," he said quietly. "Flesh-forged dragons powered by marrow." The trees shivered. Morwen said nothing more. She raised one hand, and others stepped from the forest. Women young and old. All marked by ancient magic. They joined the group without a word. Kit let out a breath. "Well. That's one yes." The mountain clans were harder. They came to the dwarves of Red Spine next. Inside a forge choked with smoke, Therineal made his case. The chieftain, Grimvar, didn't look up from his anvil. "No, no." Kit blinked. "We haven't even, I don't care what the elves made or unmade," Grimvar growled. "The last time I got involved in elven affairs, my sister got turned into a statue. Still decorate some noble's summer hall." "We'll pay," Kit offered. Grimvar paused. "With what?" "House Silver Peak's Mythil reserves," she said, unrolling a map. "Hidden vault. Untouched. It'll be yours if you help us crack the furnace." The forge fell silent. Then Grimvar grinned. "I'm in. But I want it in writing." Kit clapped him on the back. "Welcome aboard. Their final stop was Haven's Rest. Elven exiles lived there, outcasts from every court and clan. They survived by staying out of everything. Commander Sarath met them at the gates. Her eyes narrowed when she saw their Renial. "Leave. I need your help," he said. "You're not welcome here," she said. "You were the dead. You broke every oath." "I upheld every oath that mattered," he replied. "Protection. Justice. Life. And now I'm here to keep them all." He turned to the gathering crowd. Raised his voice. "They're making dragons. Monsters forged from our bones and our pride. I've seen them. They will burn the world." Silence. Then a young elf stepped forward. Barely old enough to hold a sword. "My sister vanished near the moon well," he said. "If there's a chance she's alive, I'll go." Others followed. Not many. But enough. As they left, Sarath pulled Berenial aside. "Bring them back," she whispered. "If you can." "I will," he said. And for a moment, he believed it. They returned to the Bone Rider camp 2 weeks later, with allies in tow. The camp had changed. Daughters of Root and Remedy painted protective runes onto bone armor. Dwarves worked the forges, reinforcing copper lines. Elven exiles trained beside humans, learning to fight with and against Marilite. Felix had built a full workshop. He waved frantically when he saw them. "You're just in time. We've improved the power distribution, no more spontaneous combustion." "Great," Kit muttered. "I love when we don't explode." In the center tent, Hollis stood over a war map. She didn't greet them. Just said, "Lysander's here. Cousin Lysander." Berenial's face darkened. "He has plans of the furnace," Hollis said. "And a deal." They entered the tent. Lysander Silver Peak sat at a table, smiling like a knife. "Berenial," he said. "So nice to see you wearing someone else. I should kill you." "Probably," Lysander said, unbothered. "But if you do, you'll lose this." He tossed a thick folder onto the table. Architectural plans. Guard schedules. Emergency codes. Everything you need to destroy the furnace. "Why help us?" "Because Valeth has lost his mind," Lysander said. "He's not building weapons anymore. He's building gods. Dragons. 3 of them. Fully grown. Loyal to no one but him." Berenial's mouth was dry. "And you want to stop him?" "I want to survive," Lysander said. "You do too. So do we have a deal?" Berenial hesitated. Then he took the folder. "We have a deal. But betray us, and we all burn," Lysander finished. "Exactly." That night, they gathered around the war map. The pale furnace wasn't a lab. It was a fortress. Dozens of guards. Flesh-forged soldiers. Weapons powered by living marrow. At its heart, the dragons. Kit studied the plans. "We'll need 3 teams. 1 to breach the outer walls. 1 to destroy the foundation. And 1 to reach the dragons." "I'll go with Kit," Berenial said. "Valeth will be guarding them. He won't trust anyone else." Hollis didn't argue. She simply pointed to the valley. "Then start preparing," she said. "We march in 4 days." The pale furnace squatted in Moonwell Valley like a tumor. Once sacred land, it now stank of iron, smoke, and rotting magic. 3 towers rose above twisted trees and cracked stone, their spires pulsing with unnatural light. Berenial crouched beside Kit on a ridge above it all, spyglass in hand. "Main gates heavily guarded," he murmured. "Too exposed. They expect us there." Kit pointed toward a narrow slope at the east. "That wall breach?" Lysander said it's protected by flesh sentinels. Ex-soldiers, fused with Titan parts. Lovely, Thereniel muttered. Any option that isn't suicide? Waste tunnels, Felix offered behind them. But the runoff will melt you alive if your seals crack. So we choose between death by fire, death by monsters, or death by liquefaction, Kit said dryly. Inspiring. They descended to the army hidden among the rocks and dead trees. Bone riders in gleaming armor stood beside forest witches cloaked in green. Dwarves checked charges. Elves tied back their hair and muttered spells. Farmers held weapons with shaking hands. Hollis stood at the center of it all, armor gleaming faintly under the overcast sky. Lysander's distraction will hit the southern supply road in 10 minutes, she said. Once the guards move to intercept, we strike. She pointed at 3 groups. Team 1, Felix. Waste tunnels. Get under the furnace and bring it down from below. Team 2, Callium leads. Hit the east wall, draw attention. Try not to die. She turned to Kit. Team 3 goes over the north tower. That's you. Find the dragons. Stop the dragons. Thereniel stepped forward. I go with her. That's not the plan, Hollis said flatly. He'll be there. Valeth. He trusts no one else with his work. Hollis hesitated. Then nodded. Try not to die, Prince. We need you for the victory speech. Assuming there's a victory, Kit muttered. There will be, Hollis said. Because the alternative is fire and ash. Let's move. The waste tunnels were worse than expected. Felix and his team waded through waist-deep sludge that hissed against their armor. Copper lines flared bright, trying to reject the magic-corrupted runoff. A low hum echoed from the walls, like breathing, but slower, heavier. I hate this, one engineer whispered. Good, Felix said. Means you're not stupid. They planted charges against support beams, careful not to touch anything alive, or that used to be. Then something moved. Cleaner, someone hissed. A creature shuffled through the muck. It had no face. No arms. Just flesh, stretched into motion. Waste soaked into it, vanished into pulsing sacks of skin. Don't touch it, Felix breathed. The thing passed. The team moved again, quieter now. Team 2 stormed the east wall. Flesh sentinels met them, once elves, now hollowed out and stuffed with Titan marrow. Their eyes glowed. Their arms ended in blades. Callium shouted. Formation. Aim for the head. They held the breach, just barely. Every death bought seconds. Seconds to open a hole. And through that hole came the forest daughters. Magic like wind and root wrapped around the sentinels. Where vines touched corrupted flesh, it withered, but also bound them. Holding them just long enough. Now. Callium shouted. Spears. Axes. Bone weapons flashing with light. One by one, the sentinels fell. Kit and Thereniel climbed the northern wall. Grappling hooks launched silently from devices Felix had built in a sleepless haze. They rose like shadows, avoiding spotlights, clinging to stone. I'm going to vomit, Thereniel whispered. Save it for later, Kit said, pulling him up. They dropped inside. Ran low and fast across rooftops. Below them, soldiers panicked. Sirens wailed. Thereniel pointed. That tower. The dragons will be deep below. The main door was sealed. Kit solved that by smashing it open with her hammer. They descended spiral stairs past labs, barracks, and workrooms. Alchemical fumes made Thereniel's eyes water. Screams echoed from somewhere above. Then came the voice. Intruders, a guard shouted. Kit swung. Her hammer sent him through a wall. Subtle, Thereniel said. We passed Subtle an hour ago. The lift to the deep chamber was massive. Meant for equipment and living cargo. They pulled the lever. As it descended, the air grew warmer. Then hotter. Then sharp, like breathing fire. Thereniel removed his helmet. Turned to Kit. If I die, you won't. I need to say this. She looked at him. Thank you. For showing me that honor isn't about the past. It's about what we protect now. Kit smiled faintly. It's a messy job. But someone's got to smash things until they stop being problems. The lift stopped. Doors opened. They stepped into hell. The chamber was enormous. Carved into living stone, reinforced with steel bones. And in the center stood 3 dragons. Not dragons as stories told. These were wrong. Wings stretched with copper wire. Scales made from marrowed bone. Eyes, too many, tracked movement with hunger and confusion. They pulsed with breath, with power, with something old and wrong and alive. Valeth stood between them. Elven robes marked with runes. Arms raised. Thereniel, he said. Just in time. Stop this, Thereniel said. It's not too late. It's already done, Valeth said. Elven supremacy, reborn in fire. No. These are not dragons. These are abominations. They obey. They destroy. And what else matters? Valeth smiled. Everything, Thereniel whispered, drawing his blade. While they argued, Kit moved. The dragons were chained. Each to a massive anchor embedded in the floor. Kit sprinted to the first. Her hammer flared with power and came down hard. The chain cracked. The dragon roared. Guards ran forward. Thereniel intercepted them, his blade dancing, bone armor shining like a fallen star. Command codes, he shouted to Valeth. Do they still work? You think I'd tell you? They clashed. Teacher and student. Past and future. Valeth was a master. But Thereniel had learned from humans. From chaos. From Kit. He cheated. Kit reached the second chain. The dragon it held twisted its head. Eyes locked on her. It spoke. Why do you break our chains, little hammerer? She froze. They could speak. Because, she said slowly, things that think should choose. The dragon considered this. We were not made to choose. I wasn't made for this either, she said. But I chose to fight. Do you want freedom? All 3 dragons turned to look at her. Free, one echoed. To choose. Free means consequences, said another. Free means revenge, said the third. Kit raised her hammer. Good. She shattered the last chain. Energy exploded across the chamber. The dragon stood. Valeth screamed. Command codes. Clashmore Draconis. Lambder, one dragon's tail hit him mid-word. He flew across the chamber and struck the wall. Bones snapped. The dragons turned to Kit. You gave us choice, one said. We choose to hunt those who would chain us. They spread their wings. The chamber burned. The pale furnace burned. From the ridge above Moonwell Valley, the world looked as though it had cracked open to reveal the underworld. Fire and light poured from ruptured towers. Black smoke clawed at the sky. The scent of blood, magic, and ash swept over the battlefield like a tide. Thereniel and Kit stood side by side, armor scorched, eyes wide. Behind them, Bone Riders and allies stared in stunned silence. Below, the dragons rose. One by one, they launched into the sky, wings made of wire and sinew catching unnatural wind. Their bodies shimmered with marrowlight and molten power. As they moved, reality twisted. Trees bent the wrong direction. Stones floated upward, humming. "They're free," Kit whispered. "Too free," Thereniel said hollowly. The first dragon banked north, toward the elven heartland. The second veered east, wings tearing holes in the clouds. The third circled once, low and slow. It hovered above the ridge. Its voice, when it spoke, scraped the sky. "You gave us choice." Kit raised her chin. "Yes. We choose to hunt." "Who?" "All who would bind us. Even the innocent. There are none in the places we remember." The dragon's eyes, a dozen or more, shimmered. "You were the bones of the fallen, little hammer. You broke our chains. You made us remember." "What do you remember?" Thereniel asked. "Pain. Command. The furnace. And before that, silence." The dragon turned its great head toward the valley, where what remained of the furnace flickered and died. "We will burn the chainmakers. Everywhere." Then it flew. Gone in an instant, a streak of bone and fire across the sky. Only silence remained. Until Kit broke it. "Well," she said. "That went sideways. The cost was counted in the ash. 38 dead. Another 40 wounded." The Bone Rider camp had become a makeshift hospital. Daughters of Root and Remedy moved among the injured, hands glowing, whispering to bones that pulsed with power. Felix was alive, though missing 3 fingers. He barely noticed. "They talked," he kept repeating. "They chose. That means it worked. Not well. But it worked." Thereniel sat near a shattered forge, arms wrapped around his knees. "They'll destroy everything," he said. "Cities. Kingdoms. They won't stop." "We knew that might happen," Hala said, standing beside him. Her armor was cracked. Her leg brace made from Matthias's femur had shattered. "But we thought we'd control it," he muttered. "No," Kit said, approaching. "We hoped they'd be better." She sat beside him, the soot on her cheeks smeared with tears she hadn't noticed. "We gave them choice," she said. "We have to live with what they chose." Thereniel stared at the ruins. "And what if they're right?" Kit looked at him. "What if burning it all down is the only way to be free?" She didn't answer. Because maybe, it was. 6 months later the world did not end. But it changed. At a small tavern in Mill Haven, now a refugee hub, Thereniel and Kit sat across from each other. The table between them was covered in maps and reports. Thereniel wore plain clothes now. The bone armor, Matthias's gift, rested beside him like an old friend. Kit still wore her hammer on her back. "The northern dragon took the Frost Peaks," Thereniel reported. "Destroyed 3 old elven fortresses. Ate a council of nobles. Fair. But also collapsed the Titan caves. There were survivors. They said it tore the flesh forged apart, then, flew away. Maybe it remembers who built it." He nodded. "The eastern dragon is nesting in the ruins of Dramor. Human kingdom collapsed. But it hasn't attacked any new settlements. Locals are rebuilding. Around it. They're worshipping it," Kit said, eyes narrowed. "Or respecting it. Or both. And the third? Still roaming. It passed over the sunken cities last week. Where it flew, the land changed." He tapped a report. "Rivers reversed. Birds flew in spirals. One village had its bones pulled from the earth like roots. That's disturbing. It left. Didn't kill anyone. Just changed things." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Kit said, "So. We unleashed 3 dragons. And now the world is rewriting itself." "Yes. Still better than Titans." Thereniel hesitated. Then nodded. Barely. The Bone Rider Accord had passed. Elven bone armor was now legal, with regulation. Dwarves and humans shared designs. The exile elves were welcomed back, at least in the places that still existed. The pale furnace was gone. The Senate? Splintered. And in place of monarchs, a council now stood. 3 humans. 2 elves. 1 dwarf. 1 witch. Thereniel refused the title of prince. He called himself simply, Witness. Kit refused all titles. She called herself, Busy. Together, they traveled. Helping where they could. Rebuilding what the dragons hadn't touched. Preparing for what might come next. Because the dragons weren't evil. They were just free. And freedom, they had learned, came with consequences. At the edge of the world, beyond what maps named, Thereniel stood on a cliff. The wind was sharp. Below, in a valley that once held war, a child laughed. A human child. Wearing bone armor. Lightweight. Handcrafted. Powered by love, not rage. The girl looked up at him. Waved. He waved back. Kit joined him. I still hear them sometimes, she said. In dreams. The dragons. What do they say? Nothing. Just fly. Over burning cities. Over forests healing. Over graves growing gardens. Thereniel looked at the horizon. So what now? Kit shrugged. Now we live. We make better choices. So that maybe, they will too. They stood there as the sun set. 2 warriors. 2 friends. Marked by death. Defined by choice. And beneath their feet, the world turned, cracked, scorched, haunted, but free.